The Hidden Kingdoms, A Tale of Two Fortresses.
The ancient scrolls tell us that in the First Age, with the shadow of Morgoth lengthening across Beleriand, the elves looked for a way to endure. They needed strongholds, places that could withstand the encroaching darkness. And from this great need, two hidden kingdoms were born, Nargothrond and Gondolin. Their tales, as we shall recount, are a study in stark contrast. Two different philosophies of survival, two architectures of secrecy, and in the end, two profound tragedies. So, our chronicle will trace the fate of these great realms. First, we'll examine the very shadow that forced their creation. Then, we will journey together, first into the deep halls of Nargothrond, and then ascend to the shining towers of Gondolin. After that, we must weigh the two paths that ultimately led them to ruin. And finally, we will seek out that single glimmer of light, a light that even in the deepest darkness could not be extinguished. And so, we begin. This first chapter of our tale concerns the two great answers to the shadow that fell upon Beleriand, and indeed, how the Noldor sought any refuge at all from the long shadow of the North. You see, we must remember that the Noldor did not come to Middle-earth as hopeful settlers. No, they came as exiles, living under a terrible curse. The doom of Mandos was upon them, a consequence of spilling the blood of their own kin back in Valinor. They were pursued not just by this prophecy, but by the ever-present malice of Morgoth, the very enemy they had fled. And so their princes, their leaders, they desperately sought to build strongholds, places that might just endure against the wrath they knew was coming. And out of this great need, two very different ideas of survival emerged. On the one hand, you had Finrod Felagund, the Lord of Nargothrond. He chose secrecy through cunning. His fortress would be hidden from the world, yes, but it would still engage with it, through stealth, through influence. And on the other hand, you had Turgon, the High King of Gondolin. His choice? Secrecy through absolute isolation. A city completely withdrawn from the world, trusting only in its geography and its total concealment for safety. So let us now turn our gaze to the first of these two great realms. Let us speak of Nargothrond, the hidden fortress, the kingdom of Finrod Felagund, which was delved deep within the earth with the help of the dwarves. So Nargothrond, this great fortress hidden beneath the earth, it was truly the vision of Finrod Felagund, who was perhaps the noblest of all the Noldrin princes. He was inspired, it is said, by the 1,000 caves of Menegraph, and so he delved his own realm deep into the earth, hidden right under the rushing waters of the river Narog. And for almost 400 years, his people lived by stealth, by shadow. Their strength wasn't in open war, no. It was in the cunning of the unseen hand, the swiftness of the silent arrow. And Finrod, you see, he was a friend to all the free peoples. It was this friendship, specifically with the dwarves of the Blue Mountains, that made his entire realm possible. It was they who helped him delve those great halls. And in his gratitude, Finrod gave them priceless treasures he had brought from Valinor itself. In return, they crafted for him the Nauglamir, the necklace of the dwarves, a work of such beauty it has rarely been surpassed. But pride, the ancient bane of the Noldor, was to be the undoing of Nargothrond. After the wise Finrod was gone, a man arrived, Thorin Turambar. A great hero, yes, but a cursed one. And his counsel, it changed the very heart of the people of Nargothrond. They abandoned the path of secrecy. They wanted the glory of open war. And so a great stone bridge was built across the river Narog, a monument to their newfound pride. But it was also a beacon for their enemies. And so, of course, when Glaurung the Great Dragon finally came, that very symbol of their strength became the instrument of their destruction. The bridge, meant to show their power, became the highway for their doom. And now we must turn the page of our chronicle to the second great hidden kingdom. Let us speak now of Gondolin, the lonely citadel, the city of King Turgon, a city that was, in its essence, a memory of the bliss of Valinor, perfectly preserved in a secret valley. Imagine it, deep in the heart of a hidden valley, completely ringed by the impassable peaks of the Echerioth Mountains. That is where King Turgon built his dream of a lost paradise. He was guided by a vision from the Vala Ulmo, the Lord of Waters himself, and there he raised the white towers of Gondolin, a perfect memory of Tirion, the elven city across the sea. The philosophy here, as we said, was not cunning, it was absolute, total isolation. Once his people entered that hidden vale of Tumladen, the way behind them was sealed, and for nearly 400 years, Gondolin simply became a myth, a whisper, a city that had vanished from the world. It is sung in the old lays that Gondolin, resting upon its hill of Amon-Gwerth, was more fair and more beautiful than any other city of the elves in all of Middle-earth. Turgon even gave it another name, Andalinde, the Rock of the Music of Water, a name given for the countless fountains that played in its courts. It was, in truth, a city first and a fortress second, even though its defenses were among the mightiest ever devised. The very path into Gondolin was a legend, a secret way, guarded by 7 mighty gates. Think of the progression, from the simple strength of wood and then stone, to the enduring might of bronze and then iron, and each gate was stronger and more beautiful than the one before it. Then came the gleaming gates of silver and of gold, and finally, the ultimate ward, the 7th gate, made of steel. To any who might approach from the outside, the city must have seemed utterly impregnable, like a fortress built by the Valar themselves. But, as the tales so often teach us, the strongest walls offer no protection against a rot that begins from within. Gondolin's perfect isolation, it wasn't breached by sword or by siege engine. No, it was undone by the poison in a corrupted heart. Meglin, the king's own nephew, was consumed by a dark envy, a lust for power and for the king's daughter. He fell into the hands of Morgoth, and there, in the dark pits of Angband, he made a terrible, terrible bargain. He traded the secret of the hidden way for the promise of power. And so, the enemy within proved far deadlier than any foe without. The path to Gondolin was laid bare for the armies of the Dark Lord. And so we have it. 2 great kingdoms and 2 great tragic falls. Let us now step back and weigh their fates. Let us compare their glories and the fatal flaws that led both of these hidden kingdoms to their ruin. And here we can see the 2 paths to ruin laid bare. Nargothrond, its philosophy was one of secrecy through cunning. Its fatal flaw? That philosophy was abandoned, cast aside for open pride. Its ruin came from the outside, by an enemy it essentially invited in. Gondolin, on the other hand, its philosophy was secrecy through isolation. Its fatal flaw? That very isolation could not prevent corruption from festering within its own walls. Its ruin came from within, brought about by a secret that one of its own people could not keep. In the end, one was destroyed by an enemy it invited, the other by a secret it could not contain. But in truth, the seeds of destruction for both kingdoms were sown long, long before their foundations were ever laid. That ancient flaw of the Noldor, their pride, the very same pride that led to the kinslaying and the doom of Mandos, that was their ultimate undoing. You see, it was this pride that made the lords of Nargothrond listen to the boastful counsel of Turin, and it was this same pride that made King Turgon deaf to the warnings of Ulmo, the very Vala who had guided him to a sanctuary in the first place. And yet, even in the face of such utter ruin, a single thread of hope endured. So let us conclude our tale by speaking of the light that was preserved, a light that shone forth even from the ashes of total defeat. And so, the question must be asked, was it all in vain? Were their long centuries of watchfulness, their great works of craft, were the fairest realms of their age built for naught? The answer, which echoes through all the ages that followed, is a resounding no, because even in the burning ashes of Gondolin, a seed of hope was saved. A small remnant, led by the mortal man Tuor and the princess Idril, managed to escape the inferno through a secret way, and it was their son, Arendil, who would one day carry the fate of all of Middle-earth. It was he who would bear the light of a Silmaril across the great sea, becoming a star of hope in the darkness. And it was his plea that finally awakened the wrath of the Valar, bringing about the downfall of Morgoth himself and the dawn of a new age. And so you see, the greatest of tragedies became the very wellspring of the greatest hope. And it is still sung in the lays of the elves that Tuor, the man who found the hidden city, was the only mortal man to be numbered among the elder race, and that his fate is now sundered from the fate of all other men. A final, beautiful mystery born from the heart of a fallen kingdom whose memory endures forever.